The blast door sealed behind them with a hiss, the Empire guards shoving the captured humans forward with rifle jabs. Shackled and bruised, they stumbled into the stark light of the tribunal chamber. 13 soldiers from Earth's colonial command, survivors of a collapsed outpost on Virix 4, now labeled terrorists by a regime that had rewritten truth. Captain Rourke stood tallest among them, his back straight despite cracked ribs. His eyes didn't flinch when the High Executor entered, draped in regal armor, nostrils twitching with disdain. "You are accused of violating imperial sovereignty," the Executor announced, voice amplified by embedded implants. "Your colony, unauthorized. Your resistance, futile. You're not soldiers. You're livestock with delusions." One of the humans, Lieutenant Harrow, spat blood on the floor. The guard retaliated instantly. A sharp crack echoed as a stun baton kissed his temple. Harrow collapsed, twitching. Rourke didn't look away. "You call us livestock," he said calmly. "But it took your entire fleet to bring us down." That earned laughter. Cold, hissing, mechanical laughter from the gallery of alien dignitaries above. To them, this was theater. Discipline through humiliation. One of the Empire's warlords leaned forward. "You humans cling to pride like it's a shield. How charming. Before your sentence is passed, tell me, do any of you have words of surrender?" Silence. Then Rourke, lips bloodied, spoke. "You've made a mistake." The Executor arched an eyebrow. "Enlighten us. You think this ends with us? You think you've ended something today?" "No," the Executor said slowly. "We have begun your extinction." The sentence was immediate. Public execution for 2. The rest, labor in the deep core mines of Tanak. A death slower than bullets. As guards dragged Harrow and another man away, Rourke met each of his squad's eyes, wordlessly reinforcing their dignity. Not one of them begged. Not one looked afraid. Later, inside their cell, metallic and damp, they sat in grim silence. Broken, but not defeated. Rourke's fingers twitched against the binding cuffs. A scar ran down his forearm, earned in the Battle of New Kamara, back when Earth still had allies. One of the younger soldiers whispered, "We're not getting out, are we?" Rourke didn't answer. He was staring at the vent in the corner, just listening. A voice came from the hallway. Casual, careless, alien. "You ever think about the one we lost? That little hybrid boy? What do we call him?" "Oh, right, Subject C-47. The other alien chuckled. "Worthless experiment. His father was one of these vermin." Something inside Rourke broke loose. His breath caught. He hadn't heard that designation in years. Not since they told him his wife and child were lost in the orbital strikes. He'd buried hope in the dirt of war. But now, hearing them speak, no mock what might have been his son, rage returned like oxygen. The guards outside never knew how close they were to death. The prisoners didn't sleep, just waited. Elsewhere, far beyond the prison moon, a transmission rippled through the outer systems. A distorted signal, looping audio, repeating coordinates, and a phrase in dead Earth English. "They have him." The signal reached a ship hidden in the debris belt of an old mining sector. Inside it, a man listened. Scars covered his arms like vines. His body lean, trained, conditioned for something beyond war. No insignias, no orders, just him. He played the message again. Captain Rourke, captured. His breath grew slow, deliberate. He didn't speak. He just stood, opened a drawer. Inside it, an old metal pendant, shaped like Earth's first lunar coin. He ran a thumb across its surface, then opened a storage locker full of non-standard weapons. Blades, EMP darts, anti-grav rigging, atmospheric scramblers. One by one, he started prepping them. Rourke had once whispered to him, when he was barely able to understand words, "If they take me, don't cry. Come for me. Make them remember who we are." He hadn't remembered much, but he remembered that. Back in the cell, Rourke closed his eyes and whispered under his breath, a line from an old Earth soldier's creed. "We leave no one behind, not even in death." The outpost was found in silence. No alarms triggered, no distress signals sent. Just static. Patrol ships swept in expecting a malfunction, but what they discovered was worse. No survivors, no power, and no answers. Walls charred, control panels gutted, and every soldier inside dispatched with clean, surgical brutality. No signs of struggle, no chaos, just absolute execution. Footage from a damaged security node showed one frame. A figure in motion, blurred, armored, inhumanly fast. Then nothing. The Empire's forensic teams scoured what remained, baffled. The bodies told stories more clearly than any recording could. Throats slit in silence. Arterial sprays that formed a deliberate path. A trail not of desperation, but of judgment. Inscribed on the wall in deep scorched lettering were 4 words, for Captain Rourke's blood. At first, the Empire dismissed it as rebel theatrics. But it happened again. Another station, another message. Then a dreadnought, silent, lost, and hollowed out from within. The same calling card. Not a name, not a demand, just a promise, written in the blood of those who thought themselves untouchable. Empire intelligence flagged him as a rogue asset. Possibly enhanced, possibly non-human, possibly a myth. They labeled him Ghost Protocol Black. But some of the older officers remembered. They whispered about the boy taken from Earth during the first colony raids. A child presumed dead. A failed hybrid experiment. Left to rot in the Empire's gladiatorial pens before vanishing without trace during a prison riot. He had not died. He had become something else. He learned their languages by listening, learned their tactics by surviving. And when he escaped, he didn't run to safety. He disappeared into systems they didn't control, places where laws didn't matter and names were weapons. He never sought peace, only preparation. Every scar a lesson, every wound a blueprint. He became a mercenary, but not for hire. He took contracts no one could trace, completed missions no one else survived. Always alone, always silent. He killed without hesitation, but not without purpose. He wasn't just efficient, he was terrifying, because he didn't kill to win. He killed to make a point. And now he had won. The moment he intercepted the encoded message about the prisoners on Tanak, his focus narrowed. There were no doubts, no questions, just one directive buried in his bones. Recover the father who never stopped believing he was alive. He accessed old contacts, threatened when needed, bribed when not. Acquired schematics of the prison moon. It wasn't a fortress to him. It was a wound waiting to be cut open. He stared at the blueprint of the main security tower. Timetables, guard rotations, emergency overrides. Their arrogance was his weapon. He didn't have a fleet. He didn't need one. He had time, patience, and the memory of what was taken. He reviewed old footage of Rourke, training logs, interview recordings, voice archives. There was a moment in one video, nearly 2 decades old, where Rourke stared into the camera and said, "If you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it. But my son did. And if he did, he won't forget." He hadn't. His ship was patched together from broken tech and stolen Empire cores. It didn't look like much. That was the point. It moved through their systems like a ghost, beneath detection thresholds, masked by junk data and forged identities. When it landed in the shadow of Tanak's orbital drift, no one noticed. He watched the prison cycles, logged every transport, every patrol frequency, memorized them until his eyes burned, then erased all trace of his presence. What he was about to do wouldn't be remembered because of digital records. It would be remembered because of what it left behind. No flag, no name, no nation, just a human. The kind they thought had gone extinct. One of the guards stationed at a listening post near Tanak caught a strange reading. A brief spike in heat signatures, then gone. He shrugged it off. Just static, he said. It wasn't. Inside the Avenger's ship, final checks were completed. Weapons primed. Suits sealed. His heart steady. He didn't speak. He didn't pray. He simply opened the bay doors and dropped in a vacuum. No sound. No light. Just motion. He was going home. The convoy drifted through the void with false confidence, escorted by 2 heavily armed frigates flanking the prisoner transport. Inside, Captain Rourke sat shackled, head low but eyes sharp. He knew something was coming. Not hope. He'd lost that, but a feeling deeper, primal, carved into the marrow of every soldier who had stared death in the face and refused to blink. 6 minutes before the security rotation, The first frigate's lights flickered. Just a glitch, they assumed. Then its core went dark. Power drained. Engines offline. No response from the crew. By the time command reacted, it had already vanished from their sensors. Not destroyed. Taken. The second frigate shifted formation, weapons ready, scanning for threats. That's when the screams came across their comms. Not words. Not orders. Just shrieks, one by one, until silence returned. The last broadcast showed a helmet cam feed. A figure moved through the shadows. Armor blackened by ash, visor glowing faint red. He didn't run. He walked. And everything he walked toward died. The transport panicked. Course shifted. Prisoners locked tighter. Emergency signals sent. But no one answered. The only signal they received came from their own bridge. 3 words displayed in corrupted Empire code. You took blood. Then the breach began. The hull didn't rupture. It was peeled open from the inside. A decompression warning triggered too late. Lights dimmed. Doors failed. The soldiers inside aimed their rifles at nothing, waiting for movement. But the attacker was already among them. He struck fast, without wasted effort. Throats cut before screams could form. Guns jammed. Helmets shattered from precise blows. He fought like someone who didn't need backup, didn't want mercy, and didn't care how many stood in his way. Every move exact, every step measured. It wasn't war. It was retribution. He disabled power to the cells manually. No systems, no codes. Just old-fashioned circuit burns and blade work. When Rourke's door slid open, he didn't react. He just stared at the figure in front of him. No words, just recognition. The others rose behind him, stunned. Some whispered, "It's him." The shadow. Others just stood frozen, unsure if this was rescue or revenge. But when the son extended a weapon toward his father, Rourke took it without hesitation. That single motion was louder than any speech. They moved quickly. The son took point, carving a path through corridors now soaked in chaos. He didn't explain how he got in. He didn't promise survival. He only moved forward, and the others followed. Not because they believed in escape, but because they believed in him. They reached the armory. The sun had already cleared it. Every weapon accessible. Every code bypassed. The prisoners armed themselves with fury long suppressed. They were soldiers again. Not cargo. Not numbers. And when the first wave of guards arrived, expecting broken men, they were met with vengeance wrapped in steel. The firefight was short, efficient, brutal. Humans fought differently, less elegant, more savage. They didn't just aim to kill. They aimed to humiliate, to unmake the myth of empire superiority. For every shot fired, a message was sent. We are not your property. The son didn't speak, but every time he moved, he taught. Every ambush he orchestrated, every trap he laid, reminded the others what it meant to fight without chains. He knew the layout better than the guards. He turned their own security measures against them. Gravity fields reversed. Corridors collapsed. The Empire's strongest facility became its own coffin. Rourke and his men pushed deeper, cutting through last defenses. By the time they reached the command bridge, the officers had already abandoned it. Cowards fled in escape pods, leaving behind drones and auto turrets. The sun disabled them with EMP charges forged from scrap and spite. Inside the prison's mainframe, he uploaded a single file, coordinates, names, logs of all captured humans across the sector. Then he wiped the system. Not a trace left. No records. No faces. No trails. The Empire couldn't hunt what no longer officially existed. He handed control of the ship to Rourke, then moved to leave. "Where are you going?" Rourke asked. The son didn't stop walking, just answered, "Ahead." As the ship changed course, veering into unmarked space, the Empire received one final ping. The prison was offline. All prisoners gone. The guards either dead or missing. Surveillance corrupted beyond recovery. And in the system's silence, a whisper spread from ship to ship, outpost to outpost, carried by frightened voices and decrypted fragments. The humans were free, and something far worse had been awakened with them. Reinforcements arrived too late. The prison moon was already scorched, systems gutted, defenses shattered. Smoke drifted from its upper towers like the exhale of a defeated beast. Empire officers, expecting a simple retrieval, found only silence and rot. No functioning logs, no command chain, just charred walls bearing a crude inscription burned into the metal. "We remember Earth." Of the prisoners, there was no trace. Escape pods gone. Ships vanished. No distress signals. What remained were only fragments, slain guards, ruined drones, hacked consoles broadcasting static. The forensic teams searched for explanations but found patterns instead. Human patterns. Tactics buried beneath the chaos. Coordinated, ruthless, precise. Whispers spread quickly through the outer systems. This wasn't rebellion. This wasn't sabotage. This was something personal, strategic, directed. The signature left behind told them everything they needed to know. The sun was real, and he wasn't done. Across the Empire, colonies trembled. Broadcast networks were hijacked simultaneously. A shadowed figure appeared, faceless, unarmed, yet unshakably human. His voice cracked through the feed, distorted but unmistakably clear. "You thought he was gone. You thought we were broken. You thought wrong." He didn't say his name. He didn't claim a banner. What he offered instead was a history the Empire tried to bury. Images flooded the screen. Earth's cities burned under alien fire. Children taken from rubble. Soldiers dragged in chains. Fathers watching their homes erased. "You took our blood," he said. "Now we take your sleep." The message wasn't meant to plead or warn. It was a declaration, a reawakening, a reminder that the species they once called primitive had not vanished. They had been forged into something harder, something colder. In the aftermath, allied races who once avoided contact with humans began sending encrypted messages. Not apologies, not sympathy, just questions. Questions about survival, about resistance, about the ghost who fought without armies and still won. Captain Rourke and the remaining soldiers vanished into deep space, their identities scrubbed. The ship they commandeered was stripped of its original ID beacons disabled. Coordinates scattered across different NAV points. They didn't run. They repositioned. Every escape was preparation. Every silence a threat. The sun never stayed long in one place. 1 week, an Empire station's weapons depot exploded without warning. The next, an admiral was found in his private cruiser, strangled, alone, no signs of forced entry. The methods were varied, but the signature remained the same. For every action the Empire took to suppress the story, 10 more surfaced. Pirate networks passed along details. Miners spoke of a man who walked through sealed airlocks. Mercenaries refused jobs in sectors marked with the human signal. They knew the cost. The Empire changed strategies. Propaganda flooded the systems. The human threat must be eliminated. They tried to cast him as a rogue killer, a terrorist, a mistake, but it didn't matter anymore. The fear had already seated itself. High command meetings became more frequent. Patrol budgets increased. Outposts fortified. And still, casualties mounted in silence. Facilities once thought untouchable now doubled their rotations. Every shift terrified of what might come during the dark cycle. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was momentum. He didn't need a fleet. He was the consequence of forgetting what humanity was built for. They didn't invent peace. They earned it through blood and pain. And when it was taken, they remembered. The sun stood at the edge of a starless ridge, watching his next target drift through the void. Another supply chain feeding the Empire's war machine. He didn't smile, didn't breathe deep. He just marked the coordinates and began preparing. Not for glory, not for recognition, for closure. Somewhere in the dark, Captain Rourke recalibrated an old rifle, surrounded by soldiers who had once been left for dead. They trained in silence, building from ruins, rewriting their doctrine. And across the stars, a phrase emerged like a virus in enemy transmissions. One sentence that turned even veteran commanders pale. He is still coming. Not with speeches, not with armies, but with every reason the Empire gave him to burn it all down.